In the last 10 years, significant resources have been committed towards developing the arid and semi-arid lands in this country. To try and put this into perspective, almost 80% of the residents in this area, they live below the poverty line. And we have seen serious investments being done in these areas, from construction of roads to dams, and of course, extending electricity connection to these regions in a bid to uplift the economic development of these regions. This week on Inside the Government, we are talking to Principal Secretary in the State Department of Asal, Micah Powon. Our discussion will revolve around what we need to do to accelerate development in these regions. Thank you very much indeed, PS, for joining us here. The fact that there is a whole State Department that is in charge of developing Asal is a statement that finally we are taking this region very seriously, right?
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Brian, for having you in my office this afternoon. With the promulgation of the Constitution 2010, first of all, the government set up with this Constitution the default units, and we are having the default units to develop these areas. So we are having the counties in the arid and semi-arid lands, and as we speak now, we have 9 arid counties, and then we have 14 semi-arid counties. So in total, the Asal counties, we are having 23 Asal counties, which are classified to be Asal. And this is the area where we are trying to see how to accelerate the development. Because what we are realizing, these were areas which were left behind, and this is an area where we are having a lot of potential to ensure that we are able to develop these areas and bridge some gaps in terms of expanding on our food production, especially in these counties where we have huge chunks of land which have not been utilized. So I think the government is working towards accelerating development of these areas to ensure that these areas which were left behind for some years are also brought on board so that they can be another front.
So what would you say are some of the projects that have been put in place to change the fortunes of Asal lands in this country?
In terms of availability of water and availing water, and the Ministry of Water through National Irrigation Authority, they have been doing a lot of irrigation work. Specifically, they have been promoting the what we call the household water pans, which is a small pan which holds about 1 million liters of water, and is enough to sustain a household in an Asal in terms of food and other domestic uses. So we have quite a number of them which have been done across the country, not only in arid and semi-arid lands, but other parts of the country or in the highlands. This is to ensure that we are having enough water for domestic purposes and also for irrigation. So that is one of them. And I would like to mention at this point, as we are talking about water, in September 2019, 12th of September 2019, we did sign an agreement between Kenya and Uganda. It was an MOU, actually a working MOU between the Kenya-Uganda under our Kenya-Uganda cross-border program, whereby, which is hosted in our State Department. We did sign an agreement, a working agreement on how to develop our cross-border counties. And I was privileged with my cabinet secretary to be among the people who were with the head of state of this country, His Excellency Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, and His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. We were able to sign an MOU to develop this area. And from that MOU, the President directed that we have 3 huge dams covering this area in West Pokot, Turkana County, and Marsabit, each holding about over 1 billion cubic meters of water. And the government of Kenya invested 750 million Kenya shillings in the 3 dams. Each dam was costing about 250 million Kenya shillings. And I'm happy to report that these dams have been completed. The Marsabit one, which is at Forole, has been completed and it's filled. And the other ones, one of them in West Pokot, a place called Cases, is now filling, is completed and is now filling. It's about 1.2 billion liters. And then we have another one in Urum, in Turkana County, which is also complete. And as we celebrate the 2nd anniversary of the signing of the MOU, which we had between the 2 counties, on the 13th of September, His Excellency the President and His Excellency the President of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, and His Excellency the President, Honorable Kaguta Museveni, will be inaugurating one of the dams in West Pokot Cases. So I think this is what we'll be doing. And it's actually a milestone. The reason being, during a dry season, like now, a few months ago, it has been very dry. We used to have our pastoralists moving from Kenya to Uganda. We used to have farmers or livestock keepers moving from Turkana all the way to Kobebe Dam, the Pokot moving to Uganda in search of water and pastures. But now with the construction of the 2 huge dams, we will not be having this issue of perennial shortage of water, and our people will be settled. And this is what we saw it's going to help us develop, because once you settle the livestock keepers, other development factors are coming in.
Very well. And, you know, of course, food security has been one of the challenges, you know, facing Asal in this country. The other ones have been insecurity, high illiteracy levels, and of course poor health infrastructure. How are you addressing these other 3 challenges?
Okay, you have mentioned about insecurity, education, and infrastructure. I may say all these factors are interdependent, in the sense that without peace, there's no development. Without development, there's no peace. So they are being independent. Without peace, there'll be no education. Considering the northern Kenya or the arid counties, we've been having a lot of challenges in peace. So when we are addressing this issue, let me give you an example of when you address the water issue in any given area. Like now, our livestock keepers have been moving to Uganda, to other places where there's water. And these are some of the sources of conflicts, because as they move in search of water and pastures, they are competing for the scarce resources which are available. So by enhancing the availability of water, like I've given you an example of the dams, the 3 dams that have been done in West Pokot, Turkana, and Forole in Marsabit. You see, like now in Marsabit, the dam, our people now will not be moving outside that place. They will be concentrated there. So that one will reduce conflict, and it will result in peace. Number 2, the government of Kenya has done a lot of improvement of education sector, especially in arid and semi-arid lands. So with the construction of new schools where students and pupils are able to learn, we are encouraging also boarding schools in this area. So they'll not be moving from place to place, following their animals and having conflict. They'll settle and be able to go to school. Once they go to school, they'll be depending on themselves. So I think this is how we are addressing. And I want to mention at this point on the infrastructure, government of Kenya has really done a lot of work. There are some programs which have been dedicated, some roads which have been dedicated specifically in the arid and semi-arid lands So I think there's a special attention that has been done. Mining in these areas.
And when you talked about the issue of climate change, which is a global phenomenon, and counties are supposed to come up with what you're calling the County Climate Change Act. And when you look at some of the counties in Asal, I mean, it's proper to say that they are some of the worst affected, but they are yet to come up with this act, that will deal with desertification and also come up with roadmaps on how to green their counties. As a ministry, what are you doing to help them develop this kind of acts?
Okay, I would like to say that climate change is real. The kind of weather we are experiencing many years back is not the kind of weather we are experiencing at the moment. Initially, we used to have a lot of rains, but we don't have enough rains now. We do have sporadic rains. There's a lot of changes in the climate. Like right now, a few months ago it was very dry, and the long rains, which was supposed to be there between March, April, May, June, was not there. But now we are realizing some rains. So in some parts of this country, we had a challenge of rains, which translates to lack of crops and loss of health by livestock. So it is real. And everyone is now realizing that we need to take it seriously. So as a ministry, we are encouraging those counties to establish the climate change, to implement the Climate Change Act so that they can be able to address this issue, because it's affecting all the 47 counties. It's not Asal alone, but the biggest impact is in the arid and semi-arid lands. So we are fast-tracking as a ministry that most of these counties, especially in the arid and semi-arid lands, they embrace and appreciate the effect of the climate change, especially in this area.
In the last 1 year, the world has been reeling from the impact of COVID-19. And it's proper to say that, Asal counties, were also some of the worst affected. Then there was the locust invasion, which somehow affected almost all Asal counties in this country. So when you look at these two tragedies, how have they impacted Asal counties?
Okay, I cannot say that it's only the two you have mentioned. You've forgotten about the floods.
And actually the floods, actually.
Because what has happened, we had the droughts in 2017. And then we also had, in 2018, we had the drought, and then we had the floods.
In 2019?
In 2019. After the
and
floods,
then in 2020 we had
the COVID.
The COVID.
So it's really...
And locust as well.
And locust as well. And I can say the worst hit place were the arid and semi-arid lands. But I can say, why it was not for the resilience that we are put in place as government, we would have been badly, or we would have been worse off in terms of coping with these 3 or 4 heavy challenges, starting from the floods, drought, floods, COVID, and the locusts. So I think what the government has done with a jointed effort, we have been able to respond in terms of ensuring in arid and semi-arid lands that people are cushioned. One of them, the cash transfer which we've been doing, one of the cash transfers has been done from the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection, and Hunger Safety Net program, which is hosted in our ministry through National Drought Management Authority. We've been able to do some transfers of cash in terms of cushioning, especially in the worst 4 counties, considering the magnitude of the poverty index. So we've been doing cash transfer for Hunger Safety Net program in Turkana, Marsabit, Garissa, and Mandera. So we've been transferring these resources to this area to cushion these people against these calamities. Number two, we have the transfer or cash transfer, which has been done by the Minister of Labor and Social Protection, which is quite some amount. A lot of billions have been pumped to cushion the Kenyan citizens, especially in Asals and non-Asal counties. We've been sending some resources even to the informal settlement, the slums, the Kibra, and other slums that are in the country. So I think we can say the government has done a lot to ensure that citizens have been cushioned properly when it comes to these calamities which we have been able to, which we have experienced for the few years. Mm-hmm. And I can say because of the resilience that has been developed, especially in these areas, the Asals and our communities, that's why we are able to cope up with this, all the 3 or 4 challenges that we have experienced within a short time frame.
Very well. And when you look at COVID, you know, it has managed to lay bare the weaknesses within our health system. And because of many years of underdevelopment in our Asal healthcare system, there were also some of the worst affected. What lessons have we learned that we are going to implement to help upscale the health infrastructure in Asal lands?
One of the key lessons that we have been able to learn is that we need to develop our industries to curb this issue. Before COVID set in, we didn't have factories manufacturing masks. But as we speak now, there have been factories that have been set to manufacture masks to tackle the COVID. Before COVID, if you go to the rural areas, Asal included, we didn't have, I don't know whether to call it, I don't want to call it a factory. We didn't have cottages who are manufacturing masks. Let me give you an example of what is happening in Kitui County, the Kikotech, which is, I can say, is one of the classic examples we have as lessons learned. From that challenge we have had with COVID, they were able to set up
a textile.
Not even a textile, because the textile was already there, but they were able to set up a mask manufacturing plant, and they are able to supply reusable masks, which are actually ideal for the arid and semi-arid lands. We've seen innovative Kenyans, especially our tailors across Kenya. Designers were able to come up with masks which you can be able to use, and they are creating an income. So it's a good lesson that we learn, and it helped to spur the industrial growth in this country. So this is what I can say, as much as there are negativity, but we are also having a plus. Those industries that have been set up to do masks, we will no longer be importing our masks. We are going to get it here. And for use in hospitals and the other places, because these are areas where we were using masks initially. So we will not be depending on China to get our masks. So I think from this, we were able to learn that we need to be self-reliant where possible.
And apart from the issues around insecurity and low educational levels in Asal land, what would you also say is a major challenge in the development of these areas?
Okay, you mentioned insecurity. That is one of the challenges. Number 2, education. I can say these are the major challenges, because once we address this challenge of education, we address the challenge of security, development will set in. Food security is also a challenge. But once we set our infrastructural in terms of roads, in terms of water, and accessibility to power, which is already happening now, because we've had a lot of connectivities. When the Jubilee government took over, we've had a lot of power connectivities in these regions, which has spurred growth. So not seeing a very serious challenge once we address the insecurity issue, which is a drawback to development. I did mention earlier, there's no development without security. There's no security without development. So once they are intertwined. So once we address these two issues properly and improve the infrastructural setup in terms of electricity, water, our roads, then the challenges that we've been experiencing in this area will be long gone. Yeah. And
also something else, when you look at the population distribution in Asal counties, it varies significantly. You're talking about, for example, county like Turkana, where you have about 3 to 5 people, per square kilometer. You go to Kilifi, where you have more than 400 people, per square kilometer. So, how do you ensure there is even distribution of development project in areas whereby population distribution is so diverse?
Well, I can say there is a challenge, especially where we are having sparsely populated. For example, if you are distributing like electricity, it will be more expensive covering people who are sparsely populated than those who are closely populated, densely populated. So I must say that is a challenge. But what we are encouraging mainly, the other day I was happy with what was happening in some parts of Turkana, where they are having settlements schemes. They are setting up, the county government of Turkana setting up settlement schemes. Once you set up the infrastructural setup, you have a health center, you have water point, you have electricity and other amenities, schools and the like. This will bring people to settle where they are. Let me give you an example of a place where we did a borehole, a place called Lokiriamet in Turkana County. Once we set up the borehole there was some settlement around the borehole because there was a livelihood, because there is water available and there are schools around there. So they were able, with this development, infrastructure can easily be availed to these communities once they are together.
Yeah. And when you look at the economic recovery strategy of 2001, which detailed how to develop Asal in this country, it's proper to say that a lot of emphasis has been put in the past to try and accelerate the rate of development in Asal. But what do we need to do to upscale our level of investment in these areas?
Well, I can say the economic revitalization strategy, which was there before devolution and after devolution. You see, like now, with the devolution in place, resources went down to the lowest level. So we are now having decentralization of resources to the lowest unit. Can say at the moment the lowest unit is the county, and we are having the wards. So with these resources going down there, activities like now, if you go to counties, the Asal counties, the kind of infrastructural setup which were not there before devolution, they are now there. So with the resources, decentralization of resources, we are able to spur growth in the arid and semi-arid lands. And so once you spur growth, the indices which are used to measure development in these areas, for example, if you look at the number of iron sheet houses in these arid and semi-arid lands, it has come up because of development that has been able to take place down there. So I think I can say it's being accelerated in the decentralization of resources down there and development down there. I did mention that we are having a lot of roads construction. If you travel and traverse many parts of this country, we are having a lot of improvement on our roads, be it all-weather roads, which is Maram. We also have the tarmac roads, because there's high volume and the low volume roads. You can see if you travel many parts of this country, there's a lot that's been done in terms of provision of good roads. It's not like the way it...
I was weighing up our interview. When you look at Asal, 18 of the 20 poorest counties in this country, in the northern part of this country. And there has been calls that it is high time as a country we come up with a Marshall Plan on how to redirect investment in these areas, on how to redevelop northern Kenya, and on how also to upskill progress in these counties. Do you agree with this?
I cannot say there is no master plan, or there are no efforts that are taking place in terms of...
Well, they are there, but the feeling on the ground is that there is more that can be done if the country was to have a Marshall Plan that will accelerate the rate of development in these counties.
Okay, I think we do have a Marshall Plan, specifically for arid and semi-arid lands. So what we are doing is implementing what is in the master plan. Let me give an example, because we are delivering as one, as government. Electricity. If you take yourself 10, 15, or 20 years back, to get electricity connectivity, it was impossible. But as you move around, we are having electricity. Let's go to roads. If you backdate yourself about 10, 15, 20 years ago, our road connectivity was poor. If you look at water, in arid and semi-arid lands, initially we didn't have, let's say, the amount of water sources like the way we have now. It's only that this has not been publicized. It has not been, it's been documented, but it has not been shared. And I'm happy that I'm having you this afternoon to share with you what the government of Kenya has been able to do in these arid and semi-arid lands. We are having the commissioning of one of the dams under the Kenya-Uganda cross-border program, which will be presided over by the head of state of this country, His Excellency Honorable Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and his counterpart, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, will be inviting you, and many other places, so that we can be able to show we are not doing, what we are doing is not in the boardroom. It's also the policies which we are having here is translated out there, so that Kenyans can see what the government of Kenya is doing. Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. We've been talking to Micah Powon. He is the Principal Secretary in the State Department of Development of Asal, helping us understand what the government is doing to upscale the standards of living in Asal. You have heard it from him. This has been Inside Government. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you for your time. We do this again next week, same time right here on KBC Channel 1. Until then, bye for now.